originally am from Southern California, born in Inglewood and raised in Orange County, and lived my life there. Got married at 20 years old. I just wanted to get away from my parents. They were very overbearing. And so I jumped right from home to marriage and was married 23 years. This year celebrates 23 years of not being married. And I was sharing with and I'm not a doctor person. I don't go to the doctor unless, I have to be dying. But last time I was there, I told him the two best things that have ever happened to me has been when my husband left and when I had my hysterectomy. And those were two of the best moments of my life. So there you go. And people can reach me at, for now, winningproof@gmail.com, but I have a new email that is directly connected with the heart swindler, which we're going to talk about. It's Michelle, Michelle @heartswindler.com. So all depends which one. I'm available at both.
So take us right from the beginning. How did you get involved into doing all of this that you are currently doing?
Oh, man. Well, when I was first divorced, within a few years, I was divorced at 43 years old, and I had to start life over with nothing but the clothes I had and some kitchen items, and started a new job, moved all in the same weekend. So that's when it started. A few years later, I thought, I'm going to go online, see what's out there, see, if I can find somebody. So I did. I went on, now don't laugh, saltandpeppersingles.com. That was my first site. Okay. You converse with different people. And so one person emerged from the pile, and we started conversing, and then we had a phone conversation, and it just seemed like a match made in heaven. And it's funny because my first clue that he was a heart swindler and a money swindler was when he said on the phone, "Oh yeah, this is going to work out perfectly." I didn't know he was talking about his own plan. I thought he was talking about him and I together. And so he came from Denver. Still in Southern California. I am in North Carolina now. I've been in North Carolina since 2011. That's a whole story, but came from Denver. And what these guys do is they don't ask for money the first time they meet you. Hey, here, can I have some? They develop trust. They develop a relationship with you. They tell you you are the greatest thing since sliced bread. And I remember eating sushi, going to a sushi place in Huntington Beach, California. And this guy, and very handsome, very well put together, and he was crying, like real tears rolling down his face, that he was so thankful to meet me. And then afterward, his credit card wouldn't work. And, $50 later, it's on my credit card. Not that big a deal. But then, he was in, and this is another tip off, and you probably know this being in a financial vocation, is he was studying for some investor thing, some certificate or something. I don't quite remember, but a license or something. So, my car in Denver, something, he called me at work and asked me if he could use my credit card because he needed 4 new tires for his car. Wow. Okay. Oh, but baby, I just want to set us up for our future, and me being very naive and, I'll admit, gullible, a lot gullible. Okay. Then it was luggage. Then it was sports supplements. And $2,500 later, I introduced him to my coworkers that I had at the time, and the male coworker spotted him within minutes. He asked him a couple questions, and I drove him back to my place, came back to work, and he goes, something's off. Go home and ask him this and this and this and this, which I did. He knew the gig was up. Total withdrawal, total silence after that. He was even on the phone in my living room talking to another woman, setting up his next scenario. He had taken the woman before me, which was an attorney, for $18,000. I've met 3 of his ex-wives. So this was a serial person. And so that journey started. I had to heal from it. My heart was shattered. It wasn't the money so much. It was the illusion of, I thought someone loved me and they didn't really. That was the hardest part to get over. So that's when it started. And then, I had a more recent experience. I have learned a lot, but I had one in person at the gym where I live now. And it was an in person, and it was no money involved. It was just emotional manipulation. And I will say, and I know I've talked quite a bit, but I will say they look for certain personalities. And I have that personality. And that's how I know. They look for kind, caring, nurturing people. And that's who I am. And I'm not, I'm not self-promoting. I'm just saying that's who I am at my core. And they can spot us from a mile away. And they watch you and they observe you, and they just watch you and study you. And then they know what to say. They know how to draw you in. And I know that was such a long answer to your question, but that's kind of how it started.
No, that I can appreciate that, because I'll share that there's a time where I came in contact with someone and she was sharing her similar story where she was a victim of, I like to call it the crime of love, right? It's like a passion crime because you're so associated with this person. And even though the numbers will suggest that the most vulnerable group of people aren't necessarily older women, like it's spread across numbers wise, you feel a little bit more connected to them because you look at, as you get older in age, there's certain things that you want, and you can be more susceptible and more receptive to the deception, right?
Yes.
So, Michelle, in this case, this woman, she was pretty well off. Like, she probably was making almost 6 figures when she was retired, right? Her retirement package. And she met someone online and she would give this person money, and the person would say, yes, we're going to meet one day. And they planned to meet. And she drove all the way to the Canadian-US border, and she waited. And she waited. And she waited. And the person didn't show up. Imagine sitting at that border hour after hour after hour, and this person who you've kind of developed this connection to, you probably talked a few times during the day or maybe every other day. You gave them money, you gave them their time, because there's one thing that we can't ever get back, and that is time. It's such an expensive commodity. So when you're going through what you went through, what are some of the feelings that you were experiencing, even though you may have been conflicted in one way, but you're saying, people are telling me this isn't right, but I feel what I feel. So what were you feeling during that time?
Oh, before the signs started showing up and I thought this was the greatest thing ever, he knew I loved and ate chips and salsa every Friday night. It's a ritual. It was a ritual. He brought those from Denver with him in his backpack. I was feeling, oh my gosh, I've died and gone to heaven. This is awesome. He's very attentive, very complimentary. And so I was feeling like a 20-year-old in love. I was feeling the feelings of love, and people that around me that didn't know it yet, I didn't know it, that didn't know it yet, were saying, oh, you're glowing. and I felt like I was glowing from being a young girl in love, even though I was by that time in my mid to probably mid 40s. And so I felt that after it happened, and the scourging, and this is what happens a lot, and family members, I don't even know well-meaning, but family members, friends, I hate to say they kick you while you're down, but everybody in hindsight thinks, I would have seen the signs. I can't believe you didn't see the signs. You're so stupid. I had family tell me that. I mean, my parents, when they were alive, they told me that. How could you be so stupid? I mean, that felt so demeaning to me. So I felt very demeaned. I felt very embarrassed. I'm so embarrassed after the fact. I felt sad. I had to grieve. You have to grieve. You have to go through the process of grieving a picture that you had in your mind. I had the picture, oh my gosh, I'm going to be married again. Here, 23 years later, I'm 66. I'm still not married, nor do I think that I want to be at this point because of the things that have happened to me. And, I just felt betrayed, of course. All those feelings were coming up, and it took a while for me. And there were only maybe a couple of friends that really stood by me and understood and didn't pound me while I was down. And if you're a family member, I'm telling you, please don't do that. If you have somebody in your family that has fallen for a romance scammer. And I also include narcissistic in my book that's coming out in November. I talk about narcissistic abuse as well, but it's really at the foundation, it's relationship deception. That's what it is, whether it's narcissistic abuse, whether it's romance scams. And the more recent one in January of this year, and I don't like to use the word victim, I use the word survivor of a future faker. Have you ever heard, Terrain, of a future faker?
No, I haven't heard of that term, but break that down. And for our audience, what does that mean when someone's a future faker?
I had to Google it after, and it was only a 2-month, thank God, based on what I've been through before, based on what I've learned, it only had a 2-month life cycle. And about a month into it, I started realizing, oh, wow, I've been love bombed. And again, I thought that it was a real thing. But a future faker is someone who builds a whole relationship and a whole future with no intentions of carrying it through. Oh, we're gonna go to this place for dinner, and you get all dolled up, and we're gonna go. There's no intention of doing that. Oh, but it's gonna be a surprise. No, I'm gonna take you here.
That sounds like a woman I used to date. Where she used to create these scenarios in her head, and it's like, these aren't necessarily reality, right, Michelle?
That is it. It's not, none of it is based in reality, but it gives you hope. We had this big trip to Florence, Italy planned, and we would watch YouTube videos every Sunday afternoon to places we wanted to stay, places we wanted to visit. But even the most basic of, I'm going to do this for you, let's work out together, none of it ever happened. So that's a future faker. They fake the future, basically.
Let me ask you a question, Michelle, in regards to that. Because that's an interesting term, and I learned it today. As you mentioned, you had to Google it, and looking back, there's some people that I was with, right? They would just dream up these scenarios. And you highlighted a fascinating point where you felt a diverse range of emotions. And I know sometimes people think that, well, this can never happen to me. You're just some dumb person and carry on. But many of the victims are people that are successful in the community, people who have a good head on their shoulders, right? So let's debunk some of maybe the myths and the misconceptions right, of it, because you're someone that is well spoken and this has happened to you. So when you say that you have the personality type, what are some of the things that the men and women who are scammers look for in the person that they're looking to take advantage of?
Yes, that's an excellent question. Thank you for asking that, because people think it's the gullible dumb ones. It's not. Often scammers go after highly educated women, like the one before with the one that I had early on in the mid 2000s was an attorney. So they go after educated women. I am not school educated, but you see these books behind me and it goes beyond down here. I've read all of them. I'm self-educated, and I tell people I have a PhD in life experience and from the University of Hard Knocks. And so they look for the misconception is that they look for the dumb ones, like, oh, she doesn't know much. No, intelligent, educated women. They scan the death notices in papers to find the widows who might have just received a life insurance, allowed life insurance. They look for wealthy women for sure. I am not that, but still $2,500 was significant for me. And another misconception, I think, is that they look for, there are a lot of midlife women that are victims or survivors of romance scams, but that does not limit them. They can be younger women. It can be, they just look for a certain type of personality. Like I said before, like you said, they look for the kind, the generous, on the show Catfished. They always say, this is one of the nicest women we've ever met. They're nice women. They're giving women. And that's what they look for. I hope that answered your question.
It does, because I have a friend and she shares with me that there's a number of men that she's gone on a few dates with, and she highlights that they would ask for money within, let's say, a month of knowing her. And I always found it odd, because as someone that has provided for himself, I couldn't remember the last time I asked for something from a financial perspective. You may ask for someone's time, right? You may ask for someone's um resources in a different way. Like, you wouldn't ask for cash. You would say, hey, can you help me with this? A resource, maybe, can you help me mentor to be more successful? Right? Things of that nature. But there's times where she would share this, and then you have the whole thing with like the lover boy method, where you promise them, I'm going to marry you, I'm going to take you away. Your family doesn't treat you right. I'm the man that you always dreamed of. Just let me hold you and take you away. It's a lot of, they're your knight in shining armor. And then you have the other side, where I think the way that men go through it, they go through it with a different aspect, whereas they would get deep into it. They'll be like fully romantic.
Yes.
Right? Because they'll try to buy the woman's time, and then they'll just be spending and spending and spending. Whereas the women are, when they're the victims, they're giving and giving and giving, right? It's an interesting dynamic between the two. So I know that you've written about it. You're trying to educate women and men about it. What are some things that maybe, let's say, me or my audience can look for to make sure that it's on our radar so we don't get taken advantage of?
Oh, another great question. And in my upcoming book, it's not due for release or for launch until November 16th. So it's coming, but it's, in the final stages. I have 10 warning flags that you absolutely positively must watch out for. And a few of those are, if they're telling you they love you within on the first date, within the first month, it's probably a scammer, because it takes time to fall in love. Love at first sight, maybe that can happen. But if they're saying, I love you, and they want you to say, I love you back within a very, very short time, watch out, maybe red flag. if they are love bombing you, just you think again, you've died and gone to heaven. Oh, they're just bringing me everything, and they're just, showering me with all these gifts and all these dinners and nice dinners and all that. Beautiful generosity is nice, but just be careful. Be careful. Oh gosh, another one would be if they are, and these are really, really common ones that we hear all the time. If they're military, say they're in the military overseas or on an oil rig. I mean, come on, no, absolutely not. If you are the only answer to their problem and they're stuck somewhere and they need the consulate and all these things are involved, absolutely, positively run the other direction. By that time, though, the women are usually hooked in, and they're saying I love you, and they think they're going to marry the person, all that. If the person is saying they're going to meet you, and like your friend that sat on the US Canadian border, if they say they're going to meet you and there's always an excuse why they can't, another red flag. So those are just a few that just be careful and question everything. Just question. And there's a balance between questioning and interrogating. So you don't want it to scare the good ones away by interrogating them. But I know men often say, ooh, the good ones have to pay for what the bad ones did. Yeah. I mean, it's a reality, because by the time we've been through some stuff, we are going to have to ask a lot of questions to see if you are real or if you're fake.
For those who are watching on YouTube, Facebook, and my social media, stay tuned for more incredible interviews like the ones we have with Michelle, and we will be back for more. So stay tuned, everyone.